right, welcome back. Now that we are done with painting, we're going to move on to the strapping for the final assembly. We're starting here with the abdomen because this is the most complicated part of it all. The general strapping isn't much of an issue. The issue comes in with the belt. So we'll go over a few points here. First things first, we're going to do some suspender strapping with parachute buckles over the top of the abdomen. Then we're going to thread our drop boxes here with some nylon and get them in place. Before you start your assembly, you can do this before you paint too. I like to take the belt strip and roll it up and leave it clamped for a few days to kind of get a natural curve to it. What really makes this so difficult to do is the rear belt overlaps the front of the belt, and that's the contact point. A traditional Stormtrooper belt pretty much assembles from the back end and then wraps around and closes from the rear. The Rogue One style and new production style, it's just a little different. It is an odd point that we have to deal with, but we figured out how to deal with it at this stage. It's not that bad. The first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get the upper strapping done. So I've taken a couple pieces of nylon and a couple of parachute buckles, and it's going to come around here. We're going to want it right around the front section, right in here. I'll take a pencil, mark that area where the strap is going to go in, and some sandpaper, sand that area. Sure it's wiped real well, and then super glue and accelerator that nylon down. So drop in some super glue first. The bottom's getting really low here. Then I like to wet the end. It's difficult to see here on camera. Where it was put in, I wet the end real well. Make sure the frayed nylon gets saturated, and go ahead and give it a squirt for a rapid cure. And then take some more glue, go ahead and put it on the end of the nylon. It'll cure really fast if you put it down where the accelerator just hit, and then fold it over. Give it a squirt. And then over that area, some reinforcing glue over the top. And that's cured. Then we're going to do the same thing on the right side. And I generally put these down this middle section here. That's a pretty good place for them. So that front section's nice and secure, and we'll move on and do the back. And it's gonna run about there and there. It's gonna pre-sand so I don't have to work around it. That'll be the long side of the suspender strap. Lay it down, pencil mark. Saturate the end, quick squirt, and then go over it with a little additional for security. And once that's glued in place, you can thread them into the adjustable parachute clips. Now you do have options here. You can go straight across if you just want standard suspenders, or you can crisscross them if you want some extra support. This is the primary thing that's going to be holding up your abdomen section. and they're fully adjustable. So next we're going to move on to starting to assembling the belt. The first thing we're going to do here with the belt is go ahead and put our drop down boxes, or thread our nylon through for our drop down boxes. This is probably the most difficult part of threading nylon we're going to deal with. But I've got a hole in the top, hole in the bottom, and I'm just going to do my best to work it in one way or the other. In fact, I'm going to open it up a little bit more just so it's easier to get through. There we go. So I'm just looping these around so that they hang and dangle. And if you want to get really cheeky, you can take these and go sew them. We're just going to proceed with super glue and accelerator. And it's really just looped around for some security. Now, the reason I super glue nylon together is nylon is plastic, and super glue holds really well with plastic. So I'm not worried about that bond. I have seen stitching come out of nylon. So there's my dangly drop boxes. And these are the things that make the loud clanking noises in your thighs every time you walk. Before, from the rear, we shot a few screws in. I did shoot these down here really low, so I'm actually going to back these out and move them up a little bit higher, and then do kind of the same thing that I just did with these. This is probably something I should have done before paint, but didn't really think of this step until I actually got here to assemble it. Now, as you can see there, I forgot to put on my eye protection, so you be sure to get yours before you do things like that. Hot plastic flying in your eyes is not a fun experience. All right, we're gonna do the same thing that we did to thread here. It's a little difficult to work through, but it'll come through. There we go. Let's see if that's actually a good length for it. I'm trying to pull through a double section, so it's a little tough to get through these slots. It'd be a little easier if you make your slots wider. That's a decent length. I really only want about 1/2 inch. That's a lot better. So we'll go ahead and adhere this side down using the same methods of super glue. It'll almost go right on top of the nylon here. There's one major thing I'm not doing here when I'm super gluing the ends of my Velcro. I'm not flashing the edges. Now, what's flashing the edges? Flashing the edges is burning the frayed ends of your nylon so it doesn't continue to fray. In this case, I want it flashed. In that case, I don't want it flashed because I want that super glue to penetrate into the fabric so it has more sticking points. So now these are done, flashed. That's just your basic flashing. Like these ends down here didn't get flashed at all. But up here, this is going to be exposed. This is going to fray over time. So that is what it is. See if we can proceed with the other side, save myself some trouble, and go ahead and widen this slot while I'm at it. Face full of dust. It should be a little easier to get in, as these slots are wider. In fact, that was a lot easier. So be sure to make your slots wide enough. You can see this fraying here. That's why we like to flash the edges. It can be a little difficult to deal with. So before I glue this side down, I want to make sure both these ends are even. Up a little higher. There we go. There's my clankers. You definitely don't want to flash your edges after you put on some accelerator. Let it cure, let it dry completely. Accelerator is flammable. Ask me how I know. Now that is going to be our essential completed front belt. I do like them to flop. I do like them to be mobile. You don't want this to be a stiff attachment. Doing things like this will let you sit down in your armor. So I'm going to move on to one of the next tricks. I'm going to cover trimming these down whenever we get to the actual assembly of the abdomen. Now there's a couple of things here with the abdomen and putting on the belt. So I like to cheat a little bit, and I'll use some EVA foam and glue that around the outside edge of the armor. Now what this does is it pushes out your belt far enough from your abdomen so that these tab connectors can actually sit over easily. It's just a little trick that I've done over the past couple of years. I enjoy this method. I do it with Stormtroopers and tankers. It's just one little extra thing that you can do when you're building your armor. And before you go gluing that down, hey, we've used automotive paint. Now, we really should have masked off this bottom area first, because that would prevent me from sanding. And with the automotive paint we use, you know, we've got like 5 layers. We've got Bulldog, we've got 2K primer, we've got base coat, then we've got single stage. Sorry, that's 4. I forgot how to count. Sanding through all those layers is extremely difficult, but that also means your armor is not going to scratch easily. It's not like spray paint at all. Spray paint and come up here and you got a scratch on it. This is an automotive finish. It's designed not to scratch. So let me come through here and sand away at this bottom layer. So after that, we'll have to glue down that EVA foam going all the way around. With this much sanding I've done already, that's all that I've actually been able to remove. So this is some really good durable paint. It's going to last a lifetime. It won't yellow, it won't discolor, but just keep going around. We really don't need a whole lot, but I'm sanding it back down to the bare plastic, and this will act as a glue point because we don't want to glue down to paint when at all possible. When you glue down to paint, it's going to pop. Usually you can just glue it right back down again and you're okay. Okay, all that's sanded. Let's wipe it off, get all the excess dust off before we glue anything down. We're going to start, see which piece I want to use. I'm going to start moving, or start gluing down strip of EVA foam. Just going to center it up. Starting in the center. Now, y'all should be familiar with my affinity for pencil marks at this point. It didn't go all the way to the edge. I know it's going to stop here. I know that's where my glue needs to stop. Start on this back side. You see we got a gap. You got your choice. You can take some scrap plastic and you can run it across here, or you can just trust the foam to bridge it directly across. I'm fine trusting the foam. I'm gonna measure it out. That's a pretty close approximation of how much I need. And that's gonna just bridge out to support the rear of the belt. Okay, our spacer's in place. Glue does need to set up for a little bit. It's still nice and hot, as my fingers can attest to. And we can start putting the front of the belt in place and do any trimming we need to do on these trim tabs. Also, just like we sanded there, since it's overlapping and gluing in the front, I'm going to sand down some of this glue or some of the paint we have here, so it will glue down well. Okay, so I'm going to trim these tabs down to where they're just barely visible. There's no reason to fight them when we're doing this suit. Try to keep them even. There wasn't. I'll round over these edges too. Hoping this hot glue is cooled off enough to work with. I'm pretty sure it is. And my main concern is just ensuring I'm centered in the front. So that's where I want to be. Don't forget to sand your backside. And I'm going to start by just gluing down the dead center. I don't want to try to do everything at once. I want to glue this down, let it hold. Now we wait. I'll have a pencil mark so I can see where I'm going to be ending. I know which area I'm working to. We'll go ahead and glue across this back side. And I'm being pretty generous with glue. And while that's down, just going to clamp it in place. Try to just work one side at a time. I'll bring it over, pencil mark so we know where we're working with. So be sure to let your glue guns recover. We are spitting a lot of glue out. Okay. Now I'm gonna let this set up really well. I want this glue to be completely dry, completely cooled off. I don't want to deal with it anymore. So once this is set up, we're gonna move on to moving the back around and getting this adhered in place. Let's resume with the abdomen. This hot glue's had a chance to cool down. while we were taking a break, I went ahead and went in and just reinforced the inside with a whole bunch of additional. You can super glue and accelerator this if you want to, it's fine. I like this method because it gives you a little time for readjustment. The glue seems to stick down pretty well, and since this is wrapping around and completely enclosing everything, I haven't had any real issues with tear outs. I'm trying to pull it off right now and it's just not going anywhere. We're gonna go on and move on here to the back side. See if we got a good curve going. Yep, got a nice curve. I'm gonna go ahead and just keep leaving those clamps there for a minute. The whole key to this is just making sure that you are centered up with the back. That's really all you need to worry about here, is be as centered as possible so your canister sits centered. Now, you see we have a lot of extra overlap. We're gonna cut that off whenever we are ready to glue that at the end. So I'm making sure I'm kind of just centered in the middle of the back rectangle and kind of with the front of the belt. And be sure I'm happy with what I see. And bring the glue in and douse it. I know y'all can't really see this right now, but I am dousing it. Dropping a couple clamps in place. And we'll kind of rotate it around. Work edges as we go. I've got a rough idea of where it needs to be and where it needs to be cut, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut some of this excess. And I'm not fully trimming it, I'm just getting it a little closer, and then I'll trim a little bit as I go back. You know, test fit, dry fit, absolutely everything that you do. It'll take you some time to get back to this level if you've trimmed something too much, which I hope I'm not doing right this second. I'm pretty close, yeah, I'm pretty close here. I've brought it down to where it just barely meets, right at the end of that box. Left some scissor marks. Now, before I don't have access to it, I'm gonna sand it down and make it look a little prettier. And before I get here, I wanna be sure this is how I want it, where I want it. Look at everything, be happy with everything. All right, I'm happy enough. So I'm gonna start gluing all the way down, and I got plenty of clamps here to help me too. Somehow, it's slightly shifted. While I have a chance and it's still warm, just moved it up a little. Clamp on that end. Okay. That's really about all I need over here. So we're gonna kind of start repeating the process on this other side. Maybe y'all can see it a little bit better from this angle. Start out, seeing the belt where I wanna cut it. Hope I don't overcut it. I'm doing this one pretty close. Nope. Plenty of room. Still plenty of room. Almost there. There we go. That's where I want it to sit. We're going to do the same exact thing. All my clamps handy here. Start running some glue across. Now, I'm trying not to go all the way to the plastic belt. that is where I want super glue and accelerator, at this very end where these two meet here. Okay, so other than having a lot of clamps just kind of holding the belt in place until all that cures, that is a mostly complete Stormtrooper abdomen. The only details you have left is paint in some blue in here, graze up on these three, black inside there, and then mount your canister. Now you got these two these two holes here on the canister mount, drill straight through them, glue your canister down to that, and then do 2 screws coming straight in from the backside. So I'm gonna just let this cure up. We'll do test fittings and pictures and all that stuff a little bit later. I can move on to the next thing. I have one more thing I want to skim over on the abdomen real quick, and that's the cod plate and the posterior plate. I didn't go over these because I kind of do these a little bit more towards the end. That glue is still setting up. So let me just skim over how you do this real quick. You can do this just about any way you want. This is the way I prefer to do it for me. So you're going to take some 2-inch nylon, super glue it down here, and if you're doing this for yourself, get it adjusted on the underside of the abdomen, make sure it's in position where you want it, and then super glue down the other end. That way your cod piece is always going to be there, it's going to be permanent. And you're going to do the same thing with the posterior plate. So nylon, get it in position on the rear side, glue down the remnant, and then you're going to want to do a crotch strap going across here. You can do that with Velcro, another piece of nylon. You can glue in some elastic, whatever you need, whatever the costume guidelines say you're supposed to do. These are really simple things to set up and user preference. It doesn't hurt to make your cod piece removable. So instead of gluing down the nylon permanently, put in some Velcro. That way, if you've got to go to the bathroom, you should, in theory, be able to get in there, pull off your cod, do your business, and go on about the rest of your day. So we're going to leave that alone. There's also a couple other little things we're just going to end up skimming over because this is real basic assembly. Okay, so while I have the nylon out, we are going to go over thighs. Your thigh closures in the rear and your leg suspension belts are the 2 main things you have for this. So for our thighs, we need 2 more parachute buckles, your nylon. You're going to do the same thing that we did with the upper abdomen. Measure out the nylon that you need here. I'd like a good 3/4 to an inch. It gives you plenty of room to work with. Measure out your parts. These are what are going to glue on the inside of the thighs. These aren't going to hang like this. These are going to be inset to where that clip is just riding on the inside. So when you're building your armor, try to account for this little bit of extra space. You want to hide this clip. You can see other Stormtroopers like the ones at the parks. You'll see these clips exposed on those first order Stormtroopers. Now that's for easy access. This is for approval. And that's what you want to do. If you want to set up snaps or do straight Velcro, that's up to you. This is how I do it. Before we get too crazy and doing any pencil marks, let's just pre-sand that area where we know it's going to go. Just do it on both to make it a little faster, a little easier. Don't separate your clips and set it. I could see that mistake happening real easily where you set it like this and oh no, now you got to cut it out. Just leave both sides together so you know where you're working. My favorite thing, the pencil. Set it in about the area where you want it. We know this is the stopping point right there. So a healthy amount of glue. I'll go ahead and use this stuff. My regular squirt bottle's getting a little weird. Quick squirt. That much is stuck. Get some glue on top of here. Put down your other piece of nylon. Give it a quick squirt. And then brace it with some extra on top. And let it set real well. Repeat on this thigh. Now, I use curved buckles too. You can kind of see it has a slight curve to it instead of straight buckles. And try to buy these on Amazon. They're a lot cheaper. They're like $2 to $3 a piece if you have to go to the fabric store to get them. Now, both of them are in. So one other thing with the thighs, I'm just skimming over this. There's no reason for you to sit here and watch me put Velcro on the back end. Okay, industrial Velcro. 2-inch wide industrial Velcro, Walmart 22 bucks, Amazon 17 bucks. This is your staple. This is what you use. You don't have to use that full 2-inch width. You can use white, you can use black. Almost doesn't matter in this case. So you're gonna measure out your Velcro, cross back here, cut what you need, probably split that in half. Velcro here, Velcro here. If you need some extra room, glue plastic on the underside here and put your Velcro there. That way your parts will meet up like this. So that'll give you a little bit of extra wiggle room. If you turn out you have really big thighs and you're gonna take a lot of extra plastic here and like fill seams so you can make them just about any size you need to be. You're gonna do that same thing on your calves. Just Velcro across the back, Velcro on the inside, and then get some furniture padding on the insides of these. This will keep your parts from wobbling around. Same thing with furniture padding, glued onto the inside of the forearm. Keep it in place, keep it from wiggling around. That's about all you really have to do with a forearm. Didn't want y'all having to see me cut Velcro. Let's just save that. No point. Let's talk about how we're actually going to hold these legs up. So I use a leg suspension belt. And it's one of the most simple things that you can make. So we're gonna pull off our clips now. Take some 2-inch nylon. Measure it out on yourself. Give yourself a little bit of extra room. Cut it. Now, one end, whichever end's gonna be the open end, you need to go ahead and flash it. So, flash it. Yeah, I know it's hard to see, but we got fans and stuff running everywhere. It's very difficult to deal with it. So take a 2-inch quick release parachute buckle, thread it through the non-adjustable side. Work it down. It's about 1 inch. Where'd all my stuff go? And super glue and accelerator. So first, that's a joint with the overlap. Then we're going to do a kind of sloppy joint on top. Now we just made a belt. Next part is going to be the leg danglers. So 1-inch nylon. Wrap it around the 2-inch. You don't need to leave too much overlapping. You do want these to be able to slide back and forth. So we know we're gonna need that. I know I'm about here to here. Leave myself a little extra. I'll cut off excess later. Cut 2 of these. Flash one end. Put it around the belt. Super glue. We are going on the inside and outside. There's one end. Coming around to the other end. Then thread your buckles through. Don't forget to flash your ends. All right, so the way a leg suspension belt works. Move this around. I know that's going to be too tight for me to start. You're going to do one around your waist, underneath your abdomen armor. Right. These two tabs are here in the front. Buckle it in. And buckle it in. That's it. This will keep your stuff up. If you want to put a pair of suspenders on this, go underneath, go ahead. It doesn't have a fail. All right, that's the basics of your thighs right here. Got one more part to cover. So really this last final part I'm going to cover here, it's going to be your shoulder bell attachment and your bicep attachment. This is really one of the most simple attachments. You do not have to overdo this. We are not talking about level 3 certifications with fish hooks and whatnot with it. We're going to be using some 2-inch nylon to loop around, close in here, and Velcro up the seams here, so you can have an adjustment point. It's really as simple as that. So to make our shoulder loops, start out with some 2-inch nylon. Let's measure out what we need. We only need 1/4 inch of coverage here. I know it's going to be sitting about right in there. Keeping my eye on that. And bring it down to about right there. I need 2 loops about this big. If you want to keep this adjustable, you can glue one side and do Velcro on the inside so you can move it up and down. I haven't had any real issues keeping a permanent loop, so I like to keep a permanent loop. Before these get glued down, pre-sand, remove any gloss. Dust it off real well. You can measure up. And before we do a final, let's ensure that we've got a good size on this loop. I know it's going to sit about right here. My straps are about there, so yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with that size. We're going to do that again on the other one. It's the same thing on both sides. We really don't have to do left and rights. It's going to show you how I apply the Velcro. Again, before you put down this industrial Velcro is very sticky, but it's not going to stick to dust. Nothing is going to stick to dust. So we're going to have Velcro on the bar edge and the bar edge. And I like to use the hard Velcro to put down on the inside of the armor. We're going to measure out a couple of these. This other needs to be about the top 3/4 section. And when you're cutting Velcro, use a razor knife. The glue on here is going to clog up scissors. I know I'm doing 2 of these, so go ahead and cut yourself a second piece that's already measured out. So 1 for each. And measure something out for this. I do like some adjustability with my bicep, so I'll go about close to 7/8 of the length. Now, something else about this Velcro, just because you put it on doesn't mean you need to immediately start ripping and tearing Velcro off. You need to give this adhesive some time to set. It also doesn't hurt if you glue down this adhesive. I'm very well known to be super glue and accelerating the back end of this, like onto nylon and everything else. It does stick really well. That's on the back end. There's on this end. Now, how do we put it together with the Velcro? Well, this is the most simple strap you can possibly make. I'm gonna estimate my size here and see I really only need something about this long, so about 6 inches. So I'm gonna estimate here, maybe a little bit over 12 inches of Velcro on the fuzzy side. Cut that. Pull the whole thing off. Fold the ends over each other, just like that. If you want to, you can keep a full 2-inch strap. I found cutting this in half works just fine for both arms. So after it's cut, or after it's glued together, just make 2 straps. Now it's held in place. That's it. That's really all there is to these biceps. This is going to keep this from falling down. This loop goes through your abdomen suspenders. Or if you're using a set of suspenders for your belt, then that can go through that instead. If you're having problems with it potentially slipping down, that's when you can come in and crisscross your abdomen suspenders. So that's about it. Repeat it on the other side and you're good to go. After this, we're going to have a suit up video and pictures showing how we put everything on. We kind of explained how everything went with the general assembly with like the chest and the back. All the way to that you can do a 14-inch attachment, or you can do like a Velcro attachment like you just saw. There's a lot of little options that you can do. That's going to end up being your, your final personal preference type thing. And thank you all for joining us, and I hope that y'all really learned something on building Stormtrooper armor and getting your kit today. Thanks. We'll see you later.